That cliffhanger sucks. That cliffhanger sucks big time, because I was getting into the episode, and then we get this weird black smoke looking monster ending song. And I'm like, fuck. Fuck! Because it sucks so bad when you're getting into a series, and it sucks. I hate that so much. I hate when anime do that to me. When I'm getting so into a series, it just fucking cliffhangers. You're like, fuck. Okay, so there's a lot of mysteries with this episode that I need to dive into. And for one, that final part. This black smoke creature, whatever the fuck this thing is. That right there, how do you defend against something like that? Like, thinking about it, if that thing is that big, okay? Humanity is currently just, roaming from place to place. They're losing towns left and right. Like, they're constantly on the move with the railroads. How the fuck are you supposed to run away from something like that? I mean, honestly, get on a train and go, but when you're trying to settle down or something, it doesn't seem like you really could, because this thing is huge. Really, really fucking huge. And we don't know exactly the capabilities of this thing yet. Like, we have no idea what the full extent of it can do, but obviously whatever it does, it draws a lot of Kabaneri near it. Because you see how they were all wrapping around where that black smoke monster was inside of the boiler. This changes our outlook on Kabaneri now, because see, we used to think they were just zombie things, and some of them might have muscle memory or be able to learn, which I talked about with last week's episode, because we get to see another example of this in this episode. For instance, one of the Kabaneri in this town, or where the station was actually fighting Mume with hand-to-hand combat. So it's not just in weapons, but actual hand-to-hand combat, which brings up an interesting question. A couple of Chibits actually mentioned this, saying it might not be something along the lines of learning, it could just be muscle memory. And that is a likely possibility, but even then, though, we have to think, if it can remember some muscle memory, some certain things, like, how to do hand-to-hand combat or complex movements with swords, it makes you wonder, can they do other things? Like, what other things could they do? Could they operate stuff? And could they use weapons, like maybe a gun or something? A lot of questions I have about that, but even then, though, this big thing, how does that come about? How is that made? Where do they come from? Like, that's the thing. If the virus gets inside of a human and it changes them and all that, and we've seen it, what is that? Is that like some form of hive mind or something? Like maybe something similar to the Flood from Halo or Zergs and stuff? Like it has one fucking hive mind, they all can join together and shit, and then it leads everything? That'd be pretty cool if something like that does happen. But the episode overall, it brings up many more questions and a lack of answers. Now, something's going on with Mume. It's been very apparent since the beginning with her introduction, but she's a little bit different from our MC. She's really different because she gets tired very easy in long-term fights. You see it to how the Kabaneri veins start popping out constantly from her, and also we saw something on her back that was rather dark. So the way it's going, and something's going on here, and if I had to place my cards on the table, now I'm just throwing it out here, take it with a grain of salt, doesn't mean this is going to happen, but if I'm throwing my cards on the table, I'm going to say that there's a possibility maybe that the Kabaneri, since they're half zombie, half human, maybe the virus is not actually stopped. Like, what if the virus is slowly progressing through the body and then turning them? Like, what if Mume, she's just lived a very long time. Like, we know she's pretty damn old, probably, and she's lived for a very long time. What if she's had this virus for so long inside of her, and it's finally starting to wear down her body to where, she's getting turned into a full Kabaneri? Like, what if that's the end result? Whatever's going on with Mume, what if that's the end result, and eventually you will lose your mind or something? Because we know something's going on. I mean, she's shown different things and signs separate from our MC, and I just wonder if that's trying to give us some foreshadowing to what might happen. But one thing, too, I have to question is, how is our characters going to get out of this? Because the train is currently on the rails, and the big, giant steel beams that were blocking the track didn't get completely removed. And so our characters, our regular human characters that were in the train, couldn't pass. And right beyond that, you see the black smoke monster, which is really fucking tall. Like, it's gigantic just looking at them. So their only option at this time, because we saw what happened to our main characters, they got trapped in like a mine or something with rocks falling on top of them, which means that they're not going to be able to escape that easy. So with that being said, that means that our characters in the train are going to have to back up and go backwards. And we already seen the repercussions of that, what will happen if they have to back up. Because it was said in this episode that if they went backwards, they wouldn't have the food provisions to be able to feed everybody. They would run out of food, and they couldn't feed them, and you already know what might happen. People will feast upon each other. Like, not eat them, but they will try to kill each other to get some form of food. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what anyone would probably do. They fought for their own survival, their own family. So yeah, overall, if they have to back up and leave, it pretty much dooms majority of that entire train to death. That's exactly what's going to happen. And then on top of that, with our main characters being trapped inside of a mine, how the fuck are they getting out of that? I mean, I'm gonna bet that they're somewhat safe from Kabaneri, but they don't have a blood supply. They don't. Because where are you supposed to get your blood, actually? I mean, it hasn't been said if the Kabaneri can actually eat Kabaneri. It hasn't been said yet. And I wonder if that's a possibility. I wonder if they could have the blood from Kabaneri and be able to continue on living. It's an interesting subject to bring up. But even then, though, if that doesn't work, how are they going to continue living? Because they don't have any blood around. That means that something bad's going to happen to them, and they'll lose their sanity over for their other side, their zombie side. And another thing to talk about is Mumei's past is getting brought up in this episode. Getting a little bit more background information on her, and how someone that she knew for a very long time has finally reappeared and said, if you're not useful, you will be thrown away like garbage. And Mumei has this affect her quite a bit in this episode, where she starts acting a little bit different from normally how she acts. So I wonder exactly what is entirely going on here. What's the full story behind Mumei's past when it comes to this dude that was introduced in this episode? And we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.